again, friends. Welcome to another edition of Beavertown Outdoors. I'm John, and today we are going to split up some more honey locust. Actually, we're going to run it through the range road. If you remember, if you saw my last video, which hopefully you did, I was filling totes that I had of the honey locust I had in rounds. I split up, had them on the ground, filled the totes up, put them over there. Not going back to doing totes full time. Happy with the bins, just for especially stuff like this, I want to keep separate, and I don't have a lot of the totes. Stacking in the totes works fine. So, but I got a full tote and not quite a full tote over there. So what I've got is I've got the limb wood. These sticks, I won't call them logs. Apparently that offends people if you call small diameter stuff logs. So I got sticks of honey locust. That's all the limb wood from that tree that I got from a friend of mine. And figure this stuff will run pretty quick through the processor. So this will give me a good opportunity to try out the new chain conveyor, which if you didn't see that video, check it out. If you have one of these and you're interested in changing over to the chain conveyor, they do make a kit. It was fairly simple, took a couple hours to do, and change it over to a chain. And initial testing showed it worked better. Now we're going to give it a real test. So for that small diameter stuff, I don't need the 6-way wedge. I'm just going to run down here. So I've got the 4-way in right now, which actually I've got that dropped all the way down, because the way this wedge is designed, if you drop it all the way down, you end up with just a tall single wedge. Most of this stuff, a single split is going to do it. So that's going to be great because there's going to be less waste, less chaff to worry about. Just, some of it'll be on the smaller side, but it'll be good size firewood. So anyway, I'm going to get the range road fired up and get to processing.
So what you'll see here is the saw doesn't want to cut these small, very small limbs all the way through. The ideal size for the range road kind of starts at 4 inch, and these are smaller than that. it cuts through them, but you end up having to rotate or wiggle a little bit through to get them. Not the easiest thing always, but it does do it. It's still quicker than setting them up in the jig and sawing them by hand with a chainsaw. But if you're going to try to do this, be very careful, because they can kick at you, and no matter what, don't get your hand somewhere where it shouldn't be. What you're about to see here is one of these, is a piece of wood get jammed in the conveyor and stop the whole process. And there it is. So the chain conveyor is really nice. The only downfall I see is that, you know, where a piece one, because there's some gaps there where the drums used to run, they there's gaps where wood can get jammed in. You see, I just ended up pulling it back out, and I'll get it restarted after that, and it'll run just fine. But it basically, if something gets caught in there, there's nothing going to slip. It's going to it's either going to stop the motor, stop the hydraulics, or it's going to break something. And things you learn with something new, just differences. Not good, bad, or indifferent. I still think the good outweighs the bad on that.
after about a half hour, we maybe a little more than a half hour, we got all this split up, cut up, split up. You know, these are nice firewood pieces. You know, and this is just a nice piece to go in your fireplace, fire pit, whatever. Yeah, I know some of you might say that this little limb wood isn't worth it, and depending on the circumstance, I would agree with you. With the range road, you know, it doesn't do bad at all with it. You know, and it's money left on the table just to pitch the branches into a fire pit. So it doesn't hurt to get these split up. Like I said, with the range road, cuts up, splits, boom, up the conveyor, out she goes. If I were to sit there with a chainsaw by hand and do it, and then split on the Rugged Made, yeah, it's probably more work than it's worth. But you know, loading up a pile of these onto the live deck, even some of them were small, crooked, whatever, hard to get through. I mean, it still flies through them. On a big processor, probably wouldn't be worth it. But again, the Range Road, kind of a good all-around machine. I have no complaints. One thing I definitely don't have any complaint about is the chain. Chain conveyor worked out great. I'll leave it in the video. It did, as I figured. It's the one thing with the chain and the sprocket. It's going to either try to go or it's going to kill the motor. And I had one piece that got wedged up here in the top, and it stopped the conveyor, which stopped the motor. In the past, it would have just slipped the belt. Being a chain on a sprocket, it stopped the motor, which is good, because stop the motor, rather do that, have to unwedge it, restart it, than to have it break the sprocket off. That would be bad. So but yeah, chain performed great. Range Road did great as always. So you know, if you're looking for a processor, you ain't got 20, 30, 40, 50 grand or more to spend on one. Not that those aren't worth it. You know, this Range Road's a good option. They actually have a better version of the Eco Pro line, the 350, which kind of addresses some of the downfalls of it. The 300, you know, it's got a bigger engine, different hydraulics to where you can cut and split at the same time. Yeah, so a few other things, just size-wise. Some to check out. For me, the next one up is the 500. Used to be known as the 25T. Hoping to hopefully by next year, have that. You know, maybe sooner if fortune comes my way. But that's for another day. Hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Feel free to share. But from all of us here at the beautiful Beavertown compound and Beavertown Outdoors, take care of each other, be good, stay safe, and I'm out.